everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. So we have quite a bit to talk about, so I would like to go ahead and start looking at our schedule. We are officially at 4 weeks left, and trust me, that will go by very quickly as it has been. So what we did last Thursday was talking about finishing up peer review, doing the midway reflection, and finishing up the rough draft and final revisions for the mapping essay. So this is the lesson for week 12 for Tuesday, April 13th. So what we're going to be talking about today is finishing up peer review first of all. So that will be the first thing that we will be doing, is finishing up peer review by midnight and making sure that once you make final revisions based on the feedback that your peer review partner has provided, making sure that you share the final draft with me through Google Docs and making sure that it is sent to my email. So I will be grading final drafts once those are turned in to me. So like I said, those are due by Tuesday, April 13th by midnight. So anyway, we're pretty much going to move right along today. What we're going to be talking about today is the final paper, which is the research positions paper, or I will be calling it RPP just to shorten it. So what we're going to be working on today for class is writing lab number 3, drafting the thesis for your RPP, reviewing the guidelines on Blackboard that I have provided. So the first thing that I would like to do is open up the guidelines for the RPP. And I would at least like to go through these briefly. I think that's the best place to start today. Okay, so what we're talking about today is our final research positions paper. So in terms of the rhetorical situation, so this paper, you will practice joining and advancing a pre-existing conversation. You will generate your own positions and support them with evidence gained from outside sources for logos, establishing credibility for ethos, and appealing to the emotions and values of your audience, or pathos. So this is the assignment sheet. This will help with drafting the paper. So the first thing you want to do is making sure that you have an invention for logos. So your first task, of course, is to come up with a thesis statement, and that's what we'll be working on today. So once you have settled on a thesis statement, you need to decide who your audience will be. And of course, you need to decide what you will ask of your audience. Now keep in mind that the research positions paper is worth the most out of the papers in Comp 1530. So keep in mind that in place of a final exam, what we tend to do for English 1530 is to evaluate the final paper, and then we also evaluate your final digital portfolio, or your final portfolio. So that is something just to keep in mind here. So you will need to decide what you will ask of your audience. What will you be persuading them to do based on reading your paper? And then you want to address at least one extended counter argument to some part of your argument. But we'll talk about that, and that's going to be called the rebuttal, which is a different section of the paper. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but what we're really focusing on today is a thesis statement. But of course, your invention will be for ethos or for supporting evidence, so we'll have a separate lesson on supporting evidence as well. And we'll also talk about how to include pathos within the final paper here. But I would recommend at least reading through these guidelines here. So in terms of organization, you want to make sure that, of course, you start with your introduction and your thesis statement. Now, in terms of style, you definitely want to make sure that you have formal academic language. suitable for the paper. Now, this paper tends to be about 5 to 7 pages long. So the rough draft of the RPP is due on Tuesday, April 20th by midnight, and the final draft of the RPP is due on Thursday, April 22nd by midnight. And this link down here will lead you to the sample paper. So I would recommend taking some time out of your schedule to look at this as well. What I did is I chose this sample from our portfolio guide, actually. And this one is about abortion, and it has a specific audience in mind. But I did go through and highlight the thesis statement, also the topic sentences, and also the supporting evidence. I might have to fix the formatting a little bit because I did import this from a Google document link, so I might have to look through that. But at least it will give you an idea of what it's supposed to look like. And then, of course, we will have a separate section called the rebuttal. And we'll talk about that as well. And it also has a works cited page. So yes, we will need a works cited page and in-text citations for this last paper as well. But I will fix the formatting on that sample another day. I'm not sure why the formatting is off, but it might just be from importing it from Google Docs. But anyway, at least that's one thing to keep in mind. So here is the lesson for today, which is the RPP Intro and Thesis Invention. So getting ready for your research positions paper. So items for this lesson for today, like I said, is to finish peer review for your mapping essay and make final revisions, send and share the final draft of the mapping essay to my email, reviewing the RPP guidelines, viewing the sample paper within the guidelines for the RPP, and begin drafting your thesis statement and writing lab number 3. So by now, you should have completed a draft of the mapping essay, posted the draft. Hopefully you have completed your mid-mapping reflection or your midway reflection. Hopefully everyone is finishing up with peer review and has received feedback from a peer and making sure to revise the mapping essay and making sure it's ready to turn in. So this is the last steps here. So you have already advocated for research within an issue proposal. You have conducted research through your annotated bib. You have talked about multiple sides of the issue through the mapping essay. So now this last assignment is finally time for you to have your say. You will do this by advancing the conversation in a new direction. So like I said, the paper is in 1530, very much our progressive model, which means that each paper builds upon each new step within the research and writing process. So this will take you to the link for the guidelines that we just looked at. So you can find that within the lesson as well. And then this slide will take you to the link of the sample paper that we just took a look at. So what we really want to talk about, or at least, is to begin thinking about the purpose. So this is the main purpose here. So for this paper, you will practice joining and advancing a pre-existing conversation. You'll generate your own positions and support them with evidence gained from outside sources, establishing logos, establishing credibility by synthesizing those sources responsibly and effectively in a new way that fully supports your thesis statement, which is how to establish ethos or credibility, and appealing to the emotions and values of the audience that you have chosen to address, or establishing pathos. So from here, we will create an argument, choose an audience at which to aim your argument, provide at least lines of reasoning or 3 different body paragraphs of evidence to support your claim, support your reasons with adequate evidence, and appeal to the values of the chosen audience. So the thesis statement and the purpose. So you will need to decide who your audience will be. So the point is that you need to aim your rhetoric at a certain change agent. So what that means is that you are aiming at a specific audience, as always. So who has the power and the authority and the ethos to modify my exigence or my problem? Who is this entity, an organization, person, group, government, lawmaker, judge, etc.? So you will need to decide what you will ask of your audience. You can do this in several ways. Considering some of the following to guide you in this decision, the point is that you want to modify them as your rhetorical situation so you can persuade them. So answer the prompts, the steps, in order to create a thesis statement or an argument. So the first step that you really want to think about here is there anything you could do to solve your issue, and what would it be? If you could make anything happen, how to solve this issue, what would it be? So you can argue to change someone's mind, define things differently, ask for votes, maybe seek the creation of new laws, staging a protest, overturning court cases, calling for other reforms, enacting a fundraiser, or calling for research. So this is an example of what would happen if we chose the topic of COVID-19. So the first step here would be, this is an example here. The controversy seems to be about stay-at-home orders, school closures, or about mask wearing. I believe everyone should be made to wear masks, and a national mask mandate is absolutely necessary. So what that is doing is establishing action of how to sort of resolve the problem of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now you need to choose a specific audience. Think about your mapping essay. Who is the audience that you will be able to address what you want to be done on the issue? So the audience must be some body or group that is capable of doing what it is that you are seeking. So then from there, taking the example of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the specific audience here would be the Biden administration or the US government. So as you know, the thesis statement is the sentence that states the main idea and helps control the ideas within the paper. It is not merely a topic. It often reflects an opinion or judgment that a writer has made after exploring an exigence or your main problem. So now you have an audience and an action in mind. So together they will form your thesis statement. So having your audience and action in mind, that will lead to your thesis statement. So here's an example here. So the claim here is the Biden administration needs to enforce a nationwide mask wearing mandate. So the thesis statement here, states are divided and there is no clear national direction, even though most healthcare professionals agree that masks are the best tool that we have to fight the disease. Since the dramatic spike in COVID cases over the holidays and with no vaccine. Now, this lesson is a little bit outdated. I am aware that vaccines are out nowadays, but keep in mind that this lesson was made back in December when the vaccine was not quite out yet. So it is imperative that all Americans wear a mask. Therefore, the Biden administration must make a national mask mandate its top priority. Now, these are other examples that are hopefully a little bit more up to date, but I will go back and change that slide as well. So anyways, lawmakers should stop scientists and companies from using animal testing. Instead, they should recognize alternative ways of testing as they serve the same purpose as animal testing. Now here's another one about vaccination. All doctors and health officials should be continuing to push for vaccines and make it mandatory as soon as possible. They should be recognizing that it is always going to grow better in a positive direction instead of putting it off for a decision. And there's some more examples here about animal testing. Here's one about mental health. I think quite a few of you are doing topics about mental health, so I'll read that one. So depression is not being treated properly, even though it has huge effects on people's lives. Depression should be treated seriously as much as other critical illnesses. The public of the United States need to take depression as a critical disease. And then from there, you could always state that education is necessary to inform the public. Whatever your thesis statement might be, I'm just pulling examples here. There's another one up here about climate change. There's one about animal conservation, that kind of thing. And here's another one about abortion, actually, up here. There's a few about examples of abortion in here and also about immigration. So anyway, from there, you will begin constructing a thesis statement for the RPP. So what I would like to do for Writing Lab number 3 is to begin a new Google document and title it Writing Lab number 3, and then begin drafting your introduction and your thesis statement. And make sure to send and share it to my email. And begin drafting your thesis statement and the intro for the RPP using the guidelines and the sample paper. Like I said, I will take a look at the sample paper and see what's up with the formatting. But yeah, I'll try to fix that as soon as possible. So anyway, that is it for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. All right, bye everybody.